Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 23, the Lions' first test against the All Blacks and a must-win. New Zealand, unbeaten at Eden Park since 1994. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. We're on episode 23. It's obviously the big one. It's the first test against the All Blacks at Eden Park. A must-win for the Lions. I'm here, joined once again by Dan. Hello, mate.
Morning, mate. Morning. So this is it. 4 years in the waiting, and we're finally here, ready to see what the Lions can do against the might of the All Blacks.
I'm actually pretty excited about it now. I don't know. I think there were moments maybe early on where it I don't know. It didn't quite resonate just yet. Maybe it was just because it was the thought of playing the thought of playing the All Blacks and obviously how good they are at the moment. We had England down in Argentina. We felt that was maybe more exciting, but I think that's all kind of changed now. It seems like something exciting is happening, and I think as well, a lot of people wrote off the Lions when this tour when all the chat really started about this tour. As a lot of people wrote them off and just sort of said, "Oh, it's going to be a pretty simple 3-0 win for the Kiwis." And I don't know. I think opinions are changing.
I can't wait, mate. I'm so excited by this. There's been, like you say, I know what you mean. There's been parts of this tour that have frustrated and parts that have actually just outright angered me. But I like the look of this team. I like the look of a match day 23. And I genuinely think we might do it today.
Well, look, speaking of the match day 23, let's just quickly go through the team, just so that those who haven't already had a chance to check it out, I'm sure most have, but just so that it's all there. So up front, Mako, Jamie George, and is it Targ Furlong?
Tad Furlong.
Okay. And then Allan, Wynne, Jones, and George Cruz in the row. Peter Amani captains the side with Sean O'Brien and Talupe Faletau in the back row. We've then got Conor Murray and Owen Farrell, 9 and 10. Elliot Daly, Ben Teo, Jonathan Davies, Anthony Watson and Liam Williams making up the back 5. And then on the bench, Ken Owens, Jack McGrath, Kyle Sinclair, Maro Itoje, Sam Warburton, the tour captain, Rhys Webb, Johnny Sexton and Lee Halfpenny. That is your match day 23. I mean, first up, what are your thoughts on the starting 15?
I really like it. I'm surprised. I'm going to give Gatland credit here because I didn't think he'd go for this. I thought Lee Halfpenny would start. I thought George North would start. I don't think they'd earned the starting place, but he's done what he said. He's gone for form, and I think this is the form team. The forwards look really strong and solid. The backs look exciting. There's a lot of chat about if it's form, realistically, should Maro Itoje have started over Allan, Wynne, Jones? Yeah, possibly, but I'm not annoyed that Allan, Wynne, Jones has started. I think he'll add something that Maro Itoje won't from an experience perspective, just from having that old head there. And then when Maro Itoje does come on, which he definitely will, what a boost that'll be for the team, just to have someone of his ability to come on. I think it could be a smart move.
Well, I guess that's the key. I mean, you and I, we've talked about this. I'm in the Maro Itoje should be starting camp. However, it is what it is, so I'm not going to dwell on it. So looking at the team as he's selected it, I think firstly, he's gone for an attacking side. I think one of the worries is that even if he'd gone with form, if he was going for the sort of and I'm saying this in inverted commas, the Warren Ball style, form might look very different. This feels like a team that wants to go out and actually try and take on the All Blacks rather than just sort of hold them back. And it's perhaps one of my gripes with a couple of the selections that he has on the bench is and that is in Sam Warburton and Lee Halfpenny, in that neither one of them is a particularly impactful player. I mean, that's not to take anything away from how good they are as rugby players, but they're not impact players. So do you think that the Lions lack something in terms of the Eddie Jones style finishes, or do you think he's looking at this in a completely different way and that they're there for a slightly different game plan?
Yeah, I mean, I know because obviously sort of since the team was announced, you and I have sort of spoke about this at length, and we definitely disagree on this. I don't think your bench has to have, I don't think every player on the bench has to be an impact player from a point of view of a player who can come on and sort of up the tempo of the game. So I think they can add a different impact, maybe a less sort of sexy impact from a sort of playing rugby perspective. But so for argument's sake, after 60 minutes, a tight game, New Zealand play quick, I think someone like a Sam Warburton coming on who can slow down that game, who can be that workhorse, will actually add real value. I mean, yes, he may not have the, perhaps if it had been a CJ Stander who could come on and sort of smash through and make those attacking runs, it won't have that impact. But I think it can play a different role. Same with Lee Halfpenny. Perhaps after that time on what's going to be quite a frantic game, just having somebody who you know is solid, who you know can get those kicks if you need them, who you know is not going to make mistakes, I think that can add as much value as having somebody of perhaps a JJ who could change the game just by sort of having his dancing feet. And then up front, I still think you've got those players, the likes of Maro Itoje, who can come on and change the game if you need to be, because our backline looks pretty exciting. I don't think we necessarily need more excitement now. I think we've got enough players in there who are game winners.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this theory that your Sam Warburtons, that your Lee Halfpennies can come in and just sort of slow things down and I guess shut the All Blacks out is all well and good as long as the Lions are ahead at that point. If the Lions are chasing a score, they don't offer very much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. I think we've reversed roles here, whereas normally I'm a lot more pessimistic. But I think I'm optimistic. I don't necessarily think it has to be ahead, but they certainly have to be within reach. Yeah. If we're 10 points down, a Lee Halfpenny and a Sam Warburton don't add that much value. I agree. But then I think if we're, if we're 10 points up and we're knackered, I'd rather have a Sam Warburton come on than perhaps a CJ Stander. I'd rather have a Lee Halfpenny than a Jonathan Joseph. So it goes both ways. And I think I've gone for the optimistic view, but I think we will be up after 60 minutes. I actually do.
Okay. I mean, I right now I'm not committing an opinion. I will do. I'm just trying to get through some questions that I've got for you just to sort of see what you think. I mean, the scoreline aside at 60 minutes, I mean, one of the things that's quite interesting, so it's very wet over there at the moment. It's likely to be a slower game. Will that suit the Lions and this style of play that they're likely to go for, and in particular, creating an opportunity for the likes of Sam Warburton and Lee Halfpenny?
I don't know. Whereas normally I'd have said yes, but I think the Lions and the All Blacks have been pigeonholed as two very different teams. I think we'll see. The All Blacks kick a lot more than people sort of than people realise. The All Blacks do still kick a lot of ball, and the All Blacks can play up front when they want to. Overall, I'd say yes, it probably would suit the Lions, but I'd say he hasn't picked a team based upon the weather. He's picked a team to want to go out there and play some rugby.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I guess, yeah. So let's look at, let's assume that it's going to be a slightly slower game than perhaps the All Blacks would like, based on the sort of the common opinions of the two sides. So first of all, up front, you've got Cody Taylor versus Jamie George in the number 2 shirt. Obviously, Dane Coles is injured; he's out, which is probably quite good news for the Lions. That's not to take anything away from Cody Taylor, but he's not the same player that Dane Coles is. And looking at the Crusaders game, I think it was, I would say that Jamie George won that, even though it was close.
Yeah. I think Dane Coles is a massive loss to the All Blacks, a huge loss. I think he's as big a loss as Kieran Reid would have been had Kieran Reid not been available. So for the Lions, that's a positive aspect, and I agree. I think Jamie George has the beating of him.
So that's probably quite a good thing in terms of set piece. I mean, just to take a quick step back, I mentioned at the very beginning, this is obviously the first test. It's at Eden Park. New Zealand are unbeaten at Eden Park since 1994.
Yeah, I don't know that matters. I mean, it's something I was looking at. Yes, that they can play, but I think that goes out the window. I think with Lions, all that sort of historic stuff goes out the window because, you know, perhaps if you're an English touring team or a Welsh touring team, you can be like, oh, I remember when we were here back in whenever whenever it was they last toured and we got smashed at Eden Park. The Lions won't have that they won't have that respect for the sort of historic side of it. The Lions is a unique example, and I honestly don't think that matters at all.
And of course, as we know from England's winning run, records are there to be broken.
Exactly.
They do not last forever. Fact. Okay, they could last for hundreds of years in theory, but the longer a record stands, the harder it becomes to maintain because the more pressure put on you. So, we've always said New Zealand are a team that, perhaps less so in the last few years, but historically struggle a little bit with pressure. It used to be if you could get ahead against the All Blacks, you had a good chance if you're a good side of maintaining a lead and potentially increasing it because suddenly when they're on the back foot, things become a problem. And it's not to say that obviously a record like that puts them on the back foot, but if you can capitalise, and get a bit of a foothold. Add to that the fact that they have the expectations are so high in New Zealand for this All Black side. Add to that the fact that not having been beaten since 1994 at Eden Park means that the assumption is that of course they're going to win. They always win at Eden Park. These are all little things that will play in their minds. And I know they're all consummate professionals and everything else, but it can't be helped. It's there whether they say that it isn't or not. Even if it's sort of back of the mind and they're not even consciously aware of it, it's there. So these are all little things that I think will be an advantage to the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at this team, Peter Amani as captain, I think is inspired. I think the guy's an absolute warrior, and I think they're going to thrive upon the challenge that lays ahead of them. So. What do you? And I'm actually going to put you right on the spot here. So I'm getting a bit carried away. I'm getting a bit excited by this. What do you reckon? What do you think it's going to? What do you think's going to happen today?
I think the Lions are going to win. I'm not going to go as far as to predict a score, but I think it will be a Lions win. I think they will. I think the All Blacks are going to give away penalties where we may not have expected them to. And the one area where I think that might happen, New Zealand had this habit with the kick chase. When the Lions are kicking, putting up the high balls and chasing them down, I think the Kiwis are going to do a lot of blocking because I think it's almost in their DNA that this is the way that they play in the Southern Hemisphere. But they're Northern Hemisphere referees. And a big point has been made about this. And I think they may find themselves giving away penalties in attacking positions, and I think Owen Farrell's going to come good with his boot, have a 100% day, and I think that the Lions might push ahead with that. And once that happens, I think what we've just talked about, I think the All Blacks are going to get a little bit desperate's the wrong word, but I think mistakes are going to come off the back of that, and that's where I think we're going to see some tries.
And especially when you look at you've got Elliott, Launchpad, Daly, so the All Blacks are going to have to be careful where they give penalties away because we've got within sort of Farrell and Daly, we've got two kickers who can kick from a large part of the pitch. So the All Blacks really are going to have to be careful about how they play that game. As long as our kicking has to be spot on, and Conor Murray, who's world class at this. But those sort of up and under balls must be on the money because if you give that back free, but the All Blacks have a bit of space, that could equally put us in trouble. But if we get that kicking game right, as we saw Ireland did when they beat the All Blacks, it can really cause them some trouble.
Well, yeah, talking about the back three on the New Zealand side, obviously one of the big kind of talking points and one that Warren Gatland has had no qualms in raising as a positive for the Lions is obviously the exclusion of Julian Surveyor. Yes, they brought in Rico Ione. I can't even say
Ione, yeah.
who is as we've seen, I think twice now against the Lions, he's a dangerous player, but he's inexperienced. This is a test match. Julian Surveyor has scored 46 tries in the last 53 tests for the All Blacks. He is a try-scoring machine at test level. He has experience that is vitally important in games of this kind of magnitude. It's a bit of a gamble. I mean, it may well pay off. We'll obviously find out, but it's a bit of a gamble because you want your best players, and I know I'm kind of going against my whole Allan, Wynne, Jones versus Itoje theory here, but is Julian Surveyor going to be missed?
I think so. I don't know I don't know the thinking behind this, but I had Surveyor down as a starter for me. But in fairness, I haven't necessarily followed them as certainly not to the extent I've been following the Lions. But then he absolutely tormented Jack Nard, didn't he? Sort of earlier on, I can't even remember who it's for. I think it's for the Blues, isn't it?
Yeah, I think yeah.
So we've seen what he can do. So it'll be interesting to see from that perspective. But either one, I don't think it changes much from a Lions perspective. I think both are world-class players. Both are absolute quality wingers. And I don't think that necessarily changes our game plan too much. And I don't think it changes the All Blacks game plan too much. I reckon Warren Gatland is just, as much as, Warren Gatland's like, enough of the talking between the coaches. It's mind games. That's what he's trying to do. He says enough of it, and he goes and does it. So I'm sure this is just sort of mind games trying to get under the skin of the All Blacks.
Right. Okay. 2 more questions for you before we look to head in and watch the game. The first one, again about New Zealand. They've just had a massive 78-0 demolition of Samoa. Everyone's gone, oh my God, the Lions have got no chance. Look what they've just done to Samoa. But it's Samoa. Is it good and intense preparation for facing the Lions? I mean, the Lions have played some of the best teams in New Zealand in their preparation. The Kiwis have gone out and smashed, clearly not a particularly strong Samoan side. Could this be, even if it's just sort of for 10 and 15 minutes at the beginning, could this be something that creates a bit of an opening for the Lions because their preparation is clearly so much more intense?
Yeah, I actually think so. I mean, I know there's 2 arguments to say that the All Blacks will be fresher, but actually this is why I think this test is so key that the Lions win, because I just think they'll have that bit more of an edge. I think they've had that, like you say, they've had that sort of competitive experience, and I think the Lions really need to capitalise on it for this test. Yeah, it's great the All Blacks got a run out from their perspective, but I think they will have missed the intensity that this match is going to bring. This match could be huge from a sort of physical perspective, from a confrontational perspective. I literally am so excited about this right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's going to be a fierce game.
And how about so from your perspective, just quickly, because I know we sort of need to wrap up. I mean, just from the team, because obviously we spoke over the last couple of days. I mean, having had time for this sort of to percolate a bit, because I know, I know I was speaking to Coops yesterday, and Coops is like, it's pretty much the team I mentioned. I'm like, mate, in fairness, you did put 4 options in every position, so you were likely to get the right team at some point. But is this the team you expected? Are you happy with this team?
I'm happy with the team. I've mentioned a couple of gripes. I'm willing to see how it pans out. I'm not convinced by Sam Warburton. I think there are better options on the bench. I'm not convinced by Allan, Wynne in the row, but I get your argument, and it's not just you. There are many people who had a whole debate about this on Twitter when the team was announced, and people's opinions differ. So a couple of those maybe throw up some question marks, but yeah, otherwise I'm pretty happy with the team, and I agree with you. I think it's an attacking side. It's an attacking statement from Warren Gatland. And I think, now he's got to go out, not he, but the team has to go out and get a win, really. I mean, they have to go out and they have to perform. Everything has to be clinical. No mistakes, minimum penalty count, real strong blitz defence, put them under pressure, take their points when they're on offer, and just play a very smart game of rugby. And I think if they do that, we could be seeing a bit of an upset in a positive way. And that's what I'm looking forward to. So, yeah, 100%. I'm looking forward to this now. And it definitely, it's exciting.
I agree. Well, on that note, mate, let's get ourselves ready. Let's get the sort of bacon bats and things ready and watch the first half, and then we'll obviously be back at half time to discuss. I'm hoping really positively, but this is it. 4 years in the waiting.
That's it. We're going to leave you guys with some inspiring words from Lions of the past to hopefully kind of rile you up and get you in the mood for this first half. And as Dan says, we'll be right back by the miracles of media in about 2 minutes' time, even though it will actually be at the end of the first half. So see you then.
I said to you on Saturday night, came with a questionnaire. And the first question on that questionnaire was, what does it mean to be picked for the British and Irish Lions? What does it mean to you? And for me, I put down, it's the greatest honour I could ever receive as a rugby player. It's the pinnacle of my career.
I want this so desperate. And it's taken a long time for me to understand how hard it is to win a series. And we're one game away from doing that.
You've got here. You've all worked hard. You've got here. Now is about finishing the job.
Now for me, this game of rugby is more than just a game, it's our life. You live it, you breathe it, you make huge sacrifices to be in this room.
This is my fourth crack at it, and my last one. And I want it so badly. And we all have to want it so badly. And we owe it to the jersey.
There are times today when you're going to have to reach into the very depths of your soul to get to that ball, to help the guy. Don't get isolated. Don't let the guy get isolated. Stay with him at all times.
Now for me, this tour is now about stepping up to the next level. We've had those 2 games. We know what they've been about. It's now time to turn up the heat and lose boys. And in order to do that, we're going to have to take ourselves out of the comfort zone and put ourselves in a totally different environment.
You shock yourself by taking yourself to another level. Because that's what being in Lions about. It ain't about anything other than that. It ain't about taking part. It ain't about being here. It's about winning.
Past said there's no tomorrow after today. There is. There's a tomorrow. There's one with this jersey, and there's a tomorrow without the jersey. We've got 18 minutes to choose which one we want.
And you can look at your teammate in the eye and say, I couldn't have given any more. Nobody can ask anything else. Go out and do it. Go and do it now. Go and live it. Because you'll never forget it.
Hey guys, welcome back. That's it. First half out the way. I'm here with Dan as always. Hey mate.
Hey mate, holy shit, that was sort of up and down half, wasn't it? When we started, I was like, yes, this is it, we're going to do it. And then I sort of went down, my sort of spirits went down a bit. But at the end, a great fight back by the Lions. And when we're really in this game, we're back in it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, that first 2.5 minutes looked like the absolute perfect start. Daly, you can't blame him. It was a great defensive tackle, and he was unfortunate, but he'd done his job, and the only thing that was going to stop him was the perfect tackle, which is what was delivered. But yeah, almost the perfect start. As you say, yeah, it felt a little bit like the Lions were. I don't know, they just felt a little bit uncomfortable for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and they were making a lot of mistakes. There's still, I feel like there's still that issue of the support lines. It's sort of, when the support lines are there, the Lions look really good. They make ground and they score tries, as we've seen. When the support lines aren't there, the All Blacks are so quick to get in there and turn the ball over that, you just can't let a player get away on his own. We've seen it a few times now, and it will eventually cost them. But they definitely look, in the last sort of 10 minutes or so, they just look like they're starting to settle down a bit, and that's probably the right the right way to put it. And I think we're in for a hell of a game now.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. That's the difference between the team. If the All Blacks make even a half quarter break, there's someone on their shoulder, whereas we're not quite there. There's a few chances we could have had to offload. Even right at the end when Cruz made that slight break, it just took that second too long to get to the breakdown. And that's the difference between the teams. And that's why the All Blacks in attack look so bloody destructive, that like they're just so on the ball on everything. Everything's done at pace and with power. We need to stop that. We need to smash them up front, and then we need to ensure that we're doing that ourselves in attack. It looks good. Liam Williams, what a try that was. That's got to be one of the greats, right?
It was a fantastic try. Our back three, I think the back three generally just looked really good today.
Yeah.
Daly, Watson, and Williams are combining brilliantly at the back, and I think really sort of stepping up and saying, "Yeah, good call, Warren Gatland."
Yeah. No. I agree. I don't know what's going through. I mean, it seems anti everything Warren seems to be about, but that at the end was definitely, like you say, it's definitely a good call to have had those back three there. Up front, I'm a bit. I just want us to be that bit more confrontational. I want us to start smashing them back a bit more. I want us to try and stop, stop New Zealand, because once New Zealand are going forward, they look tough team to stop. Their basic skills are just spot on from every single player, and we just can't allow them to have that.
I think, from my point of view, one of the things, and I guess it's easy for me to pick on this particular point because it's one that I made beforehand. We felt differently about this. Allan Wynne-Jones, to me, he looks a bit slow. He looks a bit old. He's taking quite a long time to get up from the ground. He's kind of lumbering around a little bit, and you can't do that. These New Zealand players are so quick to their feet after they hit the ground. It's how they're always on the shoulder of the guys running the lines. Running the lines rather than the lions. I just wonder if it was a mistake to go for experience over form, which is what I think he's done. And I think we need to see Itoje on that pitch ASAP. And it's not to say that he made one fairly big error, a handling error when we were in attacking. In attack mode. But I'm not going to point the finger at that because he's not the only person to make handling errors. But just generally his look around the pitch, he seems a little off.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, actually. I think we need to get Maro Itoje on a lot sooner rather than later. Like you say, we need that energy. We need that just attacking. I'd also like to see Sinclair just on quite soon. I think they'll add just that bit of dynamism that perhaps we're missing. I think the game plan was very much shut down the All Blacks. Well, we haven't done that, but we're still in the game. Hopefully we can sort of do that a bit more, and then we can hopefully take the attack, because I mean we need to look at it. We need to look, but our try just came from a bit of brilliance.
Yeah.
Whereas the All Blacks sort of built towards theirs, and they've looked dangerous a few times. It's a good game. It's exciting to watch. At the moment, you have to say the All Blacks look the better team, but the Lions are coming back into it, and they show that they can win it. There's a few more players I'd like to see step up a bit. I'd like to see Faletau a bit more involved. Haven't seen much of him, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that up until now, it's been all about how the forwards have been, brilliant, and the backs need to step it up. I feel like that's turned around a little bit today. That's not to say the forwards aren't playing well, but I think the backs are having a stormer, and I think the forwards they just seem to be lacking something. I think we just need to see them being more clinical, more aggressive, and just I'm hoping that they go in at half time and just remember how big this is, because I think that's what's lacking. It's just that little bit of killer instinct up front. And I think it's not a massive change that's needed to turn this around. The Lions are obviously on the scoreboard; they're right in there. And even with the sort of devastating New Zealand attack, which has been coming from minute 3, it just feels like it wouldn't take a lot turn this game around, and that's where I think they are. And you know, I still 100% believe they can do this. You know, we often see it. They've said all along the Lions' strongest quarter is the third quarter, so that's the one we're about to watch. And it's you know, they need to make sure they do some damage in that 15 minutes, so that when the time comes to make changes, the impact players can do their job. And if the lesser impact guys come on, you know, which I think it'll be interesting to see if they do, depending on what happens, obviously, in the next 15, 20 minutes or so, where they're going to go and how that's going to affect the game plan. Because it doesn't look like, at the moment, to me at least, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like the right move is to slow it down and shut it down. It's too quick, but in a sort of positive way. Like, we need to take advantage of it rather than try and slow the game down, because we're never gonna compete and score the tries if we slow it down.
Yeah, exactly. It's such. I mean, as is any elite level sport, but it's such fine margins. We just need that yard quicker to the breakdown. Just that yard quicker to be in support. We need to just shut them down that yard faster than we are, and then I think we can be the dominant team. We've got the players. We definitely have. And the All Blacks have lost. They've lost Ben Smith, haven't they? He's a huge player. So now's the time for us to take advantage. But the All Blacks are having a great game. They're playing like the All Blacks, and we're still in it, and we can still win this. And if we do turn this round and win it, that must just give huge confidence for the rest of the tour. I mean, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here, but...
But I completely agree with you. I think, you know, we've said all along this is a must-win, and anyone listening who goes, hang on a second, no, it isn't, there are 3 tests. Well, obviously, we don't mean statistically it's a must-win, but yes, psychologically a must-win, because if they can win here, and there's no question they can do it, then it sends a huge message, not only because of the New Zealand unbeaten record at Eden Park, but also just to say, look, you know, this is a New Zealand team that's firing, and we still beat them. And I think psychologically, just to give them the confidence going forwards, and to kind of knock the All Blacks a little bit. Yeah, they'll want to come back if they do end up losing here, and well, regardless of what the result is here, they're going to want to come back and make a statement in the next one. But you just put that little niggle in the back of their minds. And that's what's key. But yeah, I think, look, we're going to have to let them, you know, put their money where their mouths are in this second half. I don't think there's any point in digesting this further. Like, it's a great game. It's exciting. It's been end to end, certainly in the last sort of, you know, the New Zealand had the first sort of 25 minutes, barring the first 2, and the Lions have been, you know, in it for the last sort of 15-20 minutes, and yeah, anything can happen.
Yeah, and it's happening, and I don't care how much abuse I'm going to get for this. I've been waiting 4 years to say it, but at the end, maybe the Lions are beginning to roar. You like that one, didn't you? I've been waiting 4 years to say that. But we need this. Sorry, I'm hating myself right now.
I'm gonna have to stop you there. On that note, let's go to the second half and let's see how they get on, and let's see if they do roar.
Nice. All right, bruv. I'll catch you in a bit.
Catch you then.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Right, guys, welcome back. Post second half, not quite as positive as the first half. Dan, what did you think?
Well, rather than a roar, it was more of a whimper, to be honest. It wasn't what we were hoping for. And the question I've got for you, sort of having seen that, is: are the All Blacks just too good?
The simple answer is no. I don't think they are too good. And there's a lot of positives. I've been kind of feverishly scribbling down notes post game because there are certain things that I want to talk about that I think will back that statement up. But just before we kind of get into all of that, because I think it's important to focus on the positives in a 3-test series. Sorry. Let's get the Lions bashing out the way, because I suspect there's probably going to be a little bit of that. You know, you can't give away twice as many penalties as your opposition. You can't miss 21 tackles. That's huge. You can't have 21 turnovers conceded. You're just not protecting the ball, and you're never going to win games, especially not huge, important games like these, when you're doing things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the turnovers was huge. Like we said at half time, we were just that yard too slow to the breakdown, and that's just not going to fly against the All Blacks. I mean, the All Blacks, like Kane he was just a machine. As soon as we were down, he was over it, as they all were. So we need to be able to break down quicker. And look, these are things that are fixable. But my only concern is there's a lot of small things that can all be fixed, but there's a lot of them that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
They're elite international rugby players, so they should be able to do it. But, let's make no mistake, there's a lot of work to be done in the next week. I think almost definitely there's going to need to be a reshuffle in the team. There were a few people who I don't think had the greatest performance, who we needed to perform well. As much as I hate to say it, I'm not sure Owen Farrell was at his best.
No, I agree with you. I made a note that saying Farrell not at his best. I'm not sure that he was far enough off it that you replace him. I think he's too important. But I agree. You can't afford to have him not firing at 100%, and he wasn't today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think. Like you said, I don't think he had a bad game, but he can't miss those kicks, especially when you've got Beauden Barrett, who was on fire from the tee today. Because there was a point where, like, we'd missed the conversion and there was a penalty where we went for the corner. Whereas if we'd taken the points, suddenly it's 13-all. And that's a very different game. But look, they are fixable. We can win the next two tests, but it will be an absolute gigantic effort to do that.
I agree with you. I think just to kind of go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum now, and I'm sure we'll be accused of making excuses, but these things happened, so they're worth pointing out. It was a 15-point margin, the final whistle at the final whistle. Okay, if you take away that quick penalty in the first half that resulted in the first New Zealand try, aside from the fact that it was a forward pass. That was Lions were asleep. That should never have been a problem. You hooker scoring on the outside, that shouldn't happen against the Lions. So if you took that one away, then if you take away the handling error from the kick where Liam Williams had the ball go straight through his hands, it bounced perfectly, popped up into Ioane's hands, and of course he ran through and scored a try. And you take away the scrum penalty, not so much the actual try that they scored off the back of it, but the scrum penalty and being dominated like that prevents them from getting that quick ball and being able to score that try. That's 3 tries. That's 21 points in a game that had a 15-point margin. So it's not to say that the All Blacks didn't deserve the win. They absolutely did. They outplayed the Lions. But in terms of looking at the game and saying, were the Lions completely dominated, and are the All Blacks simply too good? I would say just look at those facts and say, well, no, clearly they're not. 3 tries that came from quite silly errors. Obviously, in the case of the scrum penalty, they weren't dominated at any other point in the game in the scrum in that way. So we know that the players that were in there have the ability to prevent that from happening. So all 3 of those were preventable. And that changes the whole dynamic of the game. Of course, the other thing, of course, is the opportunities, the tries that the Lions left out on the pitch. Of which there must have been 3 or even 4. That's huge. You can't do that at this level. You have to take the opportunities. We always say it. We usually say it in reference to taking kicks when they're on offer. But when there are tries on offer, they're just too valuable to leave out there.
Yeah, they are. And so I think it was Will Greenwood that made a really good point. When you're under pressure, when you need to chase a game, the Lions haven't played together long enough. They don't know the nuances of each other. So that can lead to slightly more mistakes. You just don't necessarily know what the man next to you, what his go-to move is. And that can make a difference. Whereas the All Blacks have been together. I mean, they've been world champions for 6 years now. They know each other inside out. They train hard in every part. They know what each other's going to do when the going gets tough. The Lions don't quite have that yet, but it will come. Obviously not fully, but every single day that's going to get better and better. And the fact they were put under that much pressure is perhaps made them realise that's what they're going to need to do. They probably realise now how they're going to need to win this match. I think we said we needed to win this test, but the main reason for us saying it is because we were hoping to catch the All Blacks a bit rusty. Well, I think it's fair to say that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So now we know that's not going to happen. So, right, fine, they're not going to be rusty. So we need to beat them at their best, and we need to figure out how we do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a positive, though. The fact that you're describing New Zealand as this sort of clinical side that know each other inside and out, where the Lions don't. And then when you look at frankly, the reasons why we lost, or the reasons why there was a 15-point margin, and the opportunities that we missed, combined with the opportunities that they took that we could have and should have prevented, that just says to me that if these guys aren't fully firing yet, but they're still able to have those opportunities, create those opportunities. Yes, they've got to finish them, but the fact that they can create them, which is obviously the most, not the most important part, but first and foremost, it's the thing you have to do. I would say the Lions actually have managed to kind of develop this bond. I think they do know each other quite well. I think I don't know why they made the mistakes that they did, and maybe you're right. Maybe it has something to do with just not having played together. But they're the kinds of mistakes, and in a lot of cases, they were individual errors.
Yeah.
Yes, there was probably a lack of support, but again, that's not really a team thing. That's individual errors. That's players not quite putting in 100% to just be on the shoulder of the player when he's making the breaks. I think those are things that individuals can fix, and if they can come out and be more clinical, that game looks very different.
Yeah, it does look different. And I think, like you say, and that's right, it is, as you mentioned earlier, it's time for us to be positive now. We were able to open up the All Blacks. We saw how we could score tries. Yes, we should have scored more, and we didn't. But, another day we do score those tries. Another day the bounce doesn't quite go for the All Blacks. We can win this. We definitely can. It's quite disheartening because it was by a lot of points, but I don't think that's a fair reflection of the game. This tour is not over. This tour's nowhere near over. The Lions can come back. If we come back next week and win, my God, what a final test that will be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Warren Gatland said after the game, all of these things can be fixed pretty quickly. The breakdown needs to be more aggressive. People need to hit past the ball. And this was interesting because it made me think back to the Lions against the Crusaders. It was Jack Knowles' second try and that Haskell clear out.
Yeah.
That's what we need to be doing. And today I was watching it and just thinking, so often at the breakdown, they would do it to us. Clear us off the ball, ball's available, scrum half in, pick it up, go. And just over and over again. We were kind of going in and sort of two or three guys would go in and sort of put in a bit of a shove and just sort of stand there and, shake the All Blacks a little bit. But it was like, well, that's too late. Now you've got three Lions in the way, so no one can clear out now. First man in has to clear out, has to clear over the top of the ball and through the All Blacks player. They're big enough and they're strong enough to do it. And it makes me wonder whether you end up seeing someone like a Haskell. We kind of said before, outside bet, why not? It hasn't looked like it based on the guys that are available. But the fact is, we need players that are going to do that. That are going to put in those massive hits at the breakdown, clear people out to create that quick ball to enable us to then go and create the opportunities and score points. So the other thing I wanted to bring up in our first half analysis, I was adamant that the key for the Lions was to maintain quick ball. Not slow the All Blacks down. But in my head, I was thinking one thing, and what was coming out of my mouth was something different. Of course, what I meant by that was, in attack, when we have the ball, we need the quick ball. We need to keep that quick ball and continue to put pressure on them. Obviously, in defence, we need to slow them down. And the result and their performance just makes that even more, highlights the importance, so that makes it even more important, because they are obviously lethal when they've got quick ball. And so, yeah, we need to be slowing them down. Yeah,
we do need to be slowing them down more. And actually, strange enough, I thought Sam Warburton did that a few times when he came on.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably quite a good point then to say to you, who for you, I'm not so interested in the guys that were good enough to stay there, but who would you bring in, either off the bench or from out of the 23, and who would you sort of push onto the bench or take out of the 23?
Right, so I actually don't think we need to make wholesale changes. One change I'd definitely make is I think Itoje has to start. Mm-hmm. I don't think Cruz necessarily had his best game, but I would still keep him. So I'd have Itoje in for Allan, Wynne. And I think I would actually change up the back row. I think I'd bring in, I don't think, actually O'Brien I thought had quite a good game, and Omani I thought did fine. But I think I'd bring in Warburton and Stander, just slightly different in the back row. Warburton to slow it down, Stander maybe to have just that bit more impact on the go forward ball. I'd potentially even have Warburton, Stander and Omani. I don't think Faletau had his best game. Again, I don't think he did anything wrong. But other than that, I think I'd stick with it. Maybe look to change up the bench. But that's a good point. Let's maybe following Tuesday's game, let's put together who we think is going to be the test team for next week. We'll put together our opinions maybe on Tuesday's pod.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, just while we're talking about it now, though, I mean, I would be tempted to certainly bring on Kyle Sinclair earlier, if not give him a start. He looked pretty dynamic when he came on, and we may need that. It's a difficult call because obviously he's young and inexperienced, but he doesn't seem to shy away from it as a result. And I don't know, he looked to offer something pretty interesting. I would also, I don't know whether it's because he's taken a knock, but Allan Wynne just didn't look right out there. He was just slow. I would look to bring in Courtney Laws if he's fit.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad call at all.
As far as Warburton is concerned, I know I've sort of said a few times, even today during the match on Twitter, that he didn't offer much in terms. I'm a fan of Warburton, but he didn't offer much in terms of impact. But I think having seen today the importance of slowing the ball down, I'd be open to seeing what he can do. It's a difficult one. I wouldn't be upset if the back row stayed the same, but I agree Faletau didn't have his best, and maybe he'd be better off coming off the bench for a bit of impact later on, give CJ Stander a chance. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was Ben Teo. Had a great game, physical in defence, physical in attack, and then they took him off.
Yeah, they clearly wanted to change. I mean, at that point, it was chasing a game, and I think they were hoping to have the two ball players in Farrell and Sexton. It might just offer something else. As it turns out, it didn't. Teo's got to start again. And I think the back line, I would probably stick with the same for the back line. I thought the back three looked dangerous. I thought Teo had a great game. I thought Jonathan Davies had a great game, actually. Yep. If I'm honest, the only one who probably didn't have a great game was Owen Farrell. Yeah. But it wasn't an appalling game. He needs to get back to his kicking. Not he needs to improve it. He needs to get it back to what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he only missed one though, didn't he?
He did, but that's because he only went. Yeah, it was the only one he went for, and it's one that he should have got.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, look, we're going to be back on Tuesday. It's Lions against the Hurricanes in their final midweek game. There's definitely going to be an opportunity for players to put their hands up again. So it's another big one for the Lions team selected to be involved in that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. It'd be interesting to see how many of his newbies he uses.
Yeah.
But yeah, all to play for next Saturday in Wellington. Second test. This time it really is a must-win because, of course, a loss would mean a loss of the series. But I don't know. I know we're biased and we're going to always be that way. But I just feel like this team is good enough to do it. They didn't fire properly today, but I have faith, I have belief that they can and that they will. And so, yeah, next Saturday, win for the Lions to turn it into a hell of a series finale.
Yeah, I agree. And like you say, we are good enough to do it. And you're right, now is a good time to end it. But yeah, let's do it next week.
Definitely. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in and hearing what we have to say on today's game. Obviously, apologies that it was the disappointing result that it was, unless, of course, you're a Kiwi. But please keep listening. Join us again on Tuesday. Obviously, join us again next Saturday for the second test. And if you get a chance, please go onto iTunes, rate us, review us, spread the word. Also, social media, if you want to get in touch with us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and what have you, it's all at England Rugby Pod. And the website is www.englandrugbypod.com. Take care, guys.
Excellent. Cheers, guys.